Hello, everyone. Hello, my name is Francesca, and in my group, we have Nick Haikal and Raja Lidiana. So today, we're going to enlighten you all a little bit on the LGBTQ community in clinical settings, and we're referring to the Values and Helping Relationship Code. But before we move on to the LGBTQ community, let us touch a little bit on values. So values are actually things or principles that you find very important in your life. It is very good to have values because it gives you a standing and you know yourself better. But sometimes we tend to impose our values. It's not usually on purpose. So imposing happens when you force your values onto clients. So for example, I value family a lot. I choose to spend my weekends with my family rather than with my friends. So let's say my client comes in and he tells me, oh, this weekend I'm gonna hang with my friends, y'all. I'm gonna sleep over, gonna spend a whole night talking. And then I say like, hey, I think family is more important than friends. Like, who raised you up? Your family, am I right? So what I'm doing is I'm saying your values are wrong, my values are the best, and this is actually not giving that person unconditional positive regard because we are judging them for their decisions. So what we can do is to expose. So expose values, exposing your values, it means you open up your own values. So in the same situation, that person is telling me about their sleepover, their hangouts, and then I can say, oh, actually, I tend to spend a lot of time with my family and I don't really have a lot of experience hanging out with friends, but it sounds so interesting. Like, please tell me more. I'm all ears. So when you open up your own values through exposing, you're actually not forcing the clients to accept your opinions or your judgments, but you're actually giving them comfort, and saying like, oh, the therapist is very interested in my life. I feel more comfortable opening up without feeling like I'm judged. So yes, these are the differences. Then we move on to codes. So we managed to extract two types of codes. The first is from NHS. So their codes is very straightforward. So ensure your values and biases are not imposed on your clients. Then the second one is from ACA. So ACA is quite long. So I just highlighted a few words. So what they're encouraging us, what they're telling us not to do is to avoid imposing your own values. We need to respect the diversity of our clients. And if we feel like, I really feel like telling this client, you're wrong, you should follow my values, then what you can do is you can seek training. So you can seek supervision from professionals that can help you prevent you from breaking any codes and get in trouble. So now just a little bit of discrimination history. So discrimination has been around for a long time. The most prominent form of discrimination is racism. So for example, a lot of journal articles have actually mentioned, whites have higher IQ levels than African Americans. Violent behaviors are more prominent in African Americans compared to Caucasian community. Yes, so in the present, the most frequent form of discrimination is also still racism. Now, if we venture deeper into the LGBTQ community, in the past, it was considered a mental disorder to be gay or lesbian, bisexual, until 1973. So if you were caught, you would go to prison or have to go through aversion therapy, which is when they try to change your behavior by having unpleasant consequences or effects. In the present, so we actually try to do a lot of research to find other countries to talk about their LGBTQ community, but we only found information from India and the US. So we're not so sure why, but this is what we have lah. So in the present, the states, Mississippi and Tennessee, they are allowed to reject treatment for the LGBTQ community if the personal values do not align or their religious orientation doesn't allow them to. They're also allowed to force people to go through conversion therapy if they think it's needed or because a lot of people believe like, it is a sickness to be part of the LGBTQ community. So especially those who are very religious, that's what they believe is the best. So just some stats from the Williams Institute. LGBTQ people who have undergone conversion therapy are almost twice as likely to attempt suicide. So just some case studies, 2 case studies. One is Anjana Harish from India and Lela Alcorn from the US. So both of these people were forced to go through conversion therapy, and in the end, they committed suicide. So Anjana Harish was actually forced by her family when she opened up that she was a lesbian. They were very horrified, and they were telling her like, if you continue this, we're going to disown you. You won't have any funds for education, and they made her go through conversion therapy. Then for Lela Alcorn, so she is a transgender, and when she came out, her church was very, very strongly against it. They were telling her that, it's a sin, you go to hell. Your friends won't like you anymore. You won't have a life anymore. This is not how God made you. So both of them suffered a lot of discrimination, and were forced to go through conversion therapy, and this is what happened. Before we move on to the impacts of this form of discrimination on the client, the therapist, and the third person, let us look at how discrimination actually can take place. So there are 2 theories. The first one is called intentional explicit discrimination. And this form of discrimination is very direct, it's very obvious, and it's very aggressive as well. So examples would be refusing to give them care when they come to the clinic due to differing values, and then it will be promoting inappropriate treatments like conversion therapy, and lastly will be using abusive language, such as like, bring that faggot over here, or why are you acting so gay, stop it. Yeah, so these are examples. And then we have subtle, unconscious, automatic discrimination. This form is actually more dangerous because some people are not aware that they're doing it. An example would be having preconceived opinions on the client. So let's say you were brought up in a family that was very religious, and they followed these teachings that said, being part of the LGBTQ community is a lie, it's wrong. When we see people who admit that they are lesbian, gay, so what you can do is you can pray it away, or do whatever possible to make it go away. And this sort of contributes to conversion therapy. Then it can be subtly imposing your personal values on them, saying like, when I found God, then I knew everything in my life. I was not gay anymore. Yeah, then thirdly, you'll be stereotyping the clients, thinking they should dress a certain way, speak a certain way. And then there are other microaggressive behaviors, such as assuming the abnormality. So let's say they're having depression, then you think like, because you're gay, that's why you're having depression. If you actually cured the gay away, then you'll be back to normal, you live life to the fullest. You can be uncomfortable or disapproving of their experiences that they share with you, or you can also be using heterosexist or transphobic terminology, like saying, you went through operations, right, to change your gender, but you still look like a man to me, you don't look like a woman. So yeah, these are subtle forms of discrimination. So now we're going to move on to how discrimination affects the patient.
Hi, Lydia here, and I will talk on how discrimination affects the patient/client. So there's an organization called the Sexual Orientation and Gender Identified Change Efforts, or SOGICE, or psoriasis, where they use conversion therapy on their clients, and they implement this on families that are more religious oriented. And there are very little sound research that provided any benefits from this conversion therapy, but there are significant harmful impacts. Okay, so these are the self-reported effects. Even though these are self-reported, we still have to take things in consideration. Okay, so the self-reported are decreased self-esteem and authenticity, increased self-hatred, negative perception of homosexuality, confusion, guilt, hopelessness, social withdrawal, and loss of faith because they can't live according to their religious beliefs, and they were told that they were deficient, sinful, unworthy of salvation unless they change. So this has been studied and researched extensively, where research has uncovered that there are increase in suicidal thoughts / ideation, 4 times more likely to commit suicide than heterosexual people, and 5 times more likely to speak of suicidal ideation than those who were not asked to change sexual orientation, because they do not feel unconditionally accepted and constantly rejected, even in therapy. So the perceived positive impacts of this, there are decreased interest in same-sex partners sexually because they were given like aversive shocks, and they have been tested through laboratory and showed nude pictures. So they have increased healthy relationships with other sex partners, improved quality of life and mental health. Well, this is not concrete evidence. It's weak construct, and study designs are so considered no evidence. This is all. So the other perceived positive impacts are this is like their only place to discuss their conflicts for those who voluntarily wanted SOGIs. So they were given cognitive frameworks that allowed them to reevaluate their sexual orientation, and they were given strategies to live consistently with religious faith and community. So this can improve for those, again, who voluntarily wanted SOGIs. They said this improves their self-esteem and belonging because they feel like they don't fit into churches or any LGBTQ groups. So they feel like they can fit in this conversion therapy because they all have the same goals. So the theory from this, we found out it is a kind of like a denial defense mechanism. So denial is a defense mechanism proposed by Anna Freud, which involves a refusal to accept reality because they can't accept that they're gay or queer, so they just block this external events from their own awareness. So sometimes this situation can just go like too much for them to handle, so they just deny it from it existing. So for the therapist perspective, if the counselor is imposing their personal beliefs to their client, it breaks the goals of counseling, which is autonomy, which is they fostering the right to control the direction of one's life, non-maleficence, avoiding action that can cause harm, beneficence, which is working for the good of the individual and society by promoting mental health and well-being, justice, where they treat individuals equitably and fostering fairness and equality, fidelity, honoring commitments and keep their promises, including fulfilling one's responsibilities of trust in professional relationship. And lastly, veracity, which is dealing truthfully with individuals with whom counselors come into professional contact. So because they are breaking all these codes, they are betraying that The counselor can cause harm to the client by devaluing this client's personal beliefs and values. So this counselor is not working for the good of the individual if the counselor sits in judgment of the client. So justice is not served when conflicts concerning personal values cause a counselor to treat one client differently than another client who has the same presenting issues. A counselor does not honor professional commitments or the profession in general if the counselor puts self before the client. Alright. So, I will talk about the third person perspective. We will talk on family, government, and society. So for family, firstly, they get stressed out that their queer children cannot get proper health treatment, therapy, and is always viewed biasness from the society. For example, people say they are not doing a good job at parenting their children because the children want to change and the parents are just willingly give their own child to change. So we can see this example like for Angelina Jolie's and Brad Pitt's now son, John Jolly Pitt, and how the media used to scrutinize them. So other than that, some parents get driven by their relatives to force conversion therapy on their children in hopes that it will fix their queer child. So the pro for this is sense of comfort that their child has possibility of changing and not bringing shame to the family. Still no hard evidence on this. Next is the government perspective. So Malaysia, the Sharia court has like imposed stricter punishments on changing gender and same-sex behavior than the existing federal maximum Sharia penalty. So the cons here is Malaysia government has been criticized for stripping human rights, and for like the pro for this is they are imposing stricter laws to lessen immoral behavior, right? So for the UK, in the 2004 gender recognition law, trans have to go through a medical diagnosis, which is gender dysphoria, GID, that is treated as a mental illness. People have said like this is outdated, inaccurate, and offensive because this is viewed as dehumanizing and bureaucratic. So, the perceived pros for this is, I guess they are helping mental illness. But come on, research have shown that most transgender persons do not experience gender dysphoria. So the mismatch between a person's body and gender identity isn't in itself a mental illness, but it can cause like an emotional distress. Alright, for society, in Malaysia, counseling and therapy have been seen or expected by the public to be unsafe for the LGBTQ as there are stricter laws. And homophobes in the psychology and medical area can be very dangerous for the public and might pass their patients conversion therapy, which have proven to not work. So, the theory here is socio-cultural theory. Has, as Vygotsky already said, that culture shapes individuals. Therefore, changing the social cultural values to adapt basic human rights is the right thing to do right now. So as an emerging society, we have to learn and teach people from different cultures and religions to be more accepting of the LGBTQ plus so they can get professional help without being discriminated against. Okay, that is all from me. I will pass it now to Nick.
Hello, my name is Nick Haikal, and I will be representing the last part of the values and the helping relationship. In my part, I will be discussing on how everyone can help change and fix discrimination towards the LGBTQ community. Now first, we will talk about how counselors or therapists can avoid imposing their values towards their client. First, seek supervision. Sometimes certain clients might have a strong differing opinion from the counselor. With this, it might be hard for the counselor to stay impartial and objective. A counselor needs to seek supervision from a supervisor and another more experienced counselor to help them run through their problems and move on with the best plan in hand. Also, this can help the counselor to develop their self awareness and understand their potentially hidden thoughts and feelings towards the client. Yes, even trained professionals such as counselors and therapists needs help sometimes for the betterment of the client. Now, we go to develop self-awareness as I stated in the past. This is a very important practice of being a good counselor. Things such as attitudes, behavioral patterns that give a strong reaction would also have to be analyzed deeply to see if those things could hurt the client even more. This translates to critically and comprehensively taking their own emotions and thoughts and analyzing them. Sometimes we have deep rooted emotions, ideas, opinions in us that we can't really address well. So, by developing self awareness, one can bring up those thoughts, those ideas, and fix them, edit them for the betterment of the client. Lastly, we must always maintain a neutral position. If your client have a differentiating view, you don't need to agree with them, but you need to maintain a neutral position and be fully objective. This will avoid any harmful and unnecessary biases in decision making and the helping relationship. You don't need to agree with everything they say or disagree with anything also, but you must always stay objective for the client. Now, we move on how we lay people can help play a part in combating this discrimination. First, educate oneself on the LGBTQ community. What is homophobia? And if you identify with any of it, what are the myths and misconceptions? Most of us will say we already know about the community, we already know about the news. But do we really? Or do we really just see a title on an Instagram post? Or do we actually read on it, discuss about it, learn from it? No? Then educate yourself. I'm saying this to myself too. Secondly, reflection on differing values and perspective, differing sexual orientation, scientific fact. Don't allow any certain teachings to blindside scientific evidence or research. Even in religion, no religion teach to hate on anyone, to treat a person with disgust. But religion teach us to treat people like people with kindness, empathy, and love. Empathy, putting oneself in another's shoes so that we can actually understand what they're going through. Third, you can speak up on it, voice it on social media. If you see it somewhere, post about it, make it gain traction, make people talk about it more. So this awareness on the topic can go up because in Malaysia, this topic is talked about but not much. Lastly, support NGOs and lawmakers. This allows greater awareness about the rate of discrimination the community face in Malaysia. This also gives affirmation to the NGOs and lawmakers that we actually care about what they are doing. What they are doing is important to us and matters. One must always remember a small impact is still an impact. Always do something to change for the better. In conclusion, the LGBTQ community is also human and also deserve love like the rest of us. As one friend once said, this is the bare minimum we can do. So let us do the bare minimum. Thank you. This is our reference. Thank you.